All right, let's go ahead and get started. Just gonna hit record. All right. All right. Well, hi, everyone. Us today. I'm Morgan here at Jotform. Very excited to be presenting to you today about our new Calendly widget. This has been a very highly requested integration, and I'm super excited to be sharing more with you today about how it all works. We have worked with Calendly to bring the power of Calendly to Jotform. So now just with a few clicks, you can connect the widget and schedule meetings with ease. We have a pretty short session for you today. I'm going to do a quick overview. We'll spend most of the time in demo. We have a couple of minutes for Q&A at the end of the session. So if you have questions as we go, you can use that Q&A for questions. I am recording, so I'll share some information at the end of the session about how to access that recording. So some of you may have been very eager for this integration and know exactly why you need it and what you're going to do with it. In fact, just from doing webinars, I know I have personally seen many comments over the years from people looking for a way to fully synchronize their calendar with forms so that your forms only show your available time and any appointments that are made can be directly added to your calendar. That latter piece has been possible through Jotform for a while, but you'll be happy to hear that the calendar now goes both ways with the Calendly integration. For those of you who are newer to the idea of this integration, that's the gist of it. I have added some features and benefits to this slide and the next, so please feel free to read along with those. But basically, it is super easy to use, very simple for you to set up, incredibly easy for your users who can choose meeting times right alongside any form information that they're providing. So it's a one-stop shop for everyone involved. No need for you to follow up with an additional link. No need for anybody who's filling it out to fill out another form. No need for you to have to add something to your calendar. Anybody interested in scheduling meetings and appointments more efficiently can benefit from this Calendly widget. So whether you work with folks externally, clients, customers, or patients, to schedule appointments, or you just want to better organize and be more efficient internally, this integration has you covered. So no matter what your organization does, if you spend time on scheduling, you can now save time with this Calendly integration in doing so. I'm not going to spend a ton more time here, not going to go deep into use cases because I think that this is a pretty obvious use case overall. But I did think it would be more important to spend a good amount of time in a demo. So let's go do that. All right, I am going to turn my camera off for the demo just so it's not in the way of anything. So stop video there. All right. So I'm starting today's demo, like many of our demos here, logged into my Jotform account. You can see that here I'm on my Forms page, which is the page that you typically see when you log into Jotform. And for this example here, our demo today, I'm going to be using this telemedicine consult appointment form. In order to open that, I'm going to open this up in the form builder, which is where you'll be when you're building a form or where you'll go if you're editing a form, whether it's a template or something you've already created. And speaking of templates, if as I'm going through our demo here today, this particular example looks like one that would work well for you, I have based this off of a template. You'll find it in our vast template library with thousands and thousands of templates. This is a card form, and I believe the template itself is called telemedicine appointment form. I've made a few minor changes, but you'll see for the most part, see what you see here. For anybody who is unfamiliar with card forms mean that each question will be on its own page, so it appears more like a slide deck. So for this particular form, what users will see is this intro on one page, and then each question on its own page from there. So patient name, email, what type of therapy they're seeking, medical history, whether or not they have health insurance, and any additional notes. So notably, what you don't see here is a calendar, and that is where the Calendly widget is going to come in handy. So we go ahead and add that in. To add that in, just like any other form elements, I'm going to go to the Add Form Element toolbar on the left, click on it to open it up, and navigate to the Widgets menu. And from here, I'm just going to type Calendly, start to type that. Calendly pops up here at the top, and I can drag and drop it wherever I want it to appear on my screen. So in this case, I want it to be the last field people will see. I'm going to close the form elements toolbar so we can focus on settings on the right. So as you can see, we do have a big square, empty square here currently, sort of a placeholder for Calendly, but we don't actually have a calendar in Calendly just yet, or showing up here just yet. In order to add the Calendly calendar, you'll need the event URL from Calendly. So at this point, let me switch over to Calendly. I'm not going to give a full intro to Calendly, but I do want to give you enough information to use this integration. So as far as I know, when I set up my Calendly account, I set it up using a Gmail account. It automatically connected to the calendar associated with that account. There may be a few additional steps for you, but I found that Calendly was very easy to use and provided enough guidance to make that pretty easy for me. Calendly also automatically added a single event for me here, which is that 30-minute meeting that you see here. So if you are in your Calendly account, and in case it's not obvious, you will need a Calendly account to use this integration. You want to make sure you're on your home tab. It's nice and bold, so it's easy to find. And you can either create a new event type here or click on an event to edit it. Either way, you'll see the same settings that we're about to see right now. So when you do click on it to edit it, you see sort of a home screen for this particular event. So this is all settings for my 30-minute meeting. I'm not going to go through these additional options here. You may want to go through those down the line if you are setting this up, but all we really need to look at right now is these top two. So first, what event is this? I'm defining it here. The event name is a 30-minute meeting. I can add a location and a description. There's also a link here, so we can see this at the top of the link is the base to my Calendly account, and this 30-minute gets tacked onto the back of it so that I can link directly to this 30-minute event where people can book 30-minute sessions with me. Also, right below that is when people can book the event. So how far in advance they can book it, or are they booking within a specific date range? What is the duration? So if you wanted to change it from 30 minutes to something else, do you want it to be exactly matched to your typical, your calendar, your existing calendar that's linked to the account, or do you want to set custom hours? And you can also choose to add buffer time before and after the event if you need prep time or follow-up time before you move to your next appointment. So let's assume at this point that I have set up this 30-minute meeting the way I want it. I'll hit save and close, and that will bring me back to that home screen for the event itself. I mentioned that link. You need that link for Jotform. You can grab the full link right here. So there is the heading at the top, edit one-on-one event type. And next to that, right next to the share button is a little link icon. I'm going to click on it to copy it. And then I can go back into my form, and that's what I'm going to paste into this event URL. Once I do that, we should see my calendar appear. All right, so there we go. Just as a little bit of proof that this is actually tied to my existing calendar, I am on vacation next Monday, so that's why you're not seeing any availability on Monday. Nobody is able to book time there. On Tuesday, I have a meeting at 10 a.m. and then my flight home is right after that. So you can see if I click on Tuesday, my last appointment slot is at 9:30 and the next one isn't until 2 p.m. So it is in fact blocking off the time that I have blocked off in my calendar. In addition to adding the calendar link directly here, you have a few other options of what you can do. So colors for the widget itself to match it to your page more. There are also some additional settings here about what this will look like on your page, so you can change the size, etc. You can also pull in fields from the rest of your form. So namely, if you have a name and email that you're collecting, you can pull that in so that it is tied to the calendar event when somebody makes an appointment. In order to do that, you'll just click on that field here, and I'm going to select patient name. So again, that is the field that I have above this field in the form. And same thing with email, I'll choose the email field. So now that data will be pulled in as well. Last thing I want to do here is name this up at the top, add a header up here. So we'll call this 30-minute appointment. And I can also add a subheader here. So we'll say, please book a appointment. All right. So at this point, my calendar is set up, very easy to do. It only took a couple of seconds there. If you add in the time that it takes to connect to Calendly, you're really just looking at a couple of minutes to get up and running. From here, I can share this off. We can take a look at what this looks like before sending it out with the preview form icon, toggle up here on the right. So we will take a quick look at this. So we have our intro slide, patient name, email, the type of therapy they're seeking, medical history, health insurance, additional notes, and finally that appointment slot at the very end of the form here. You can tell this is the last part of the form, the last question on the form, because rather than if we look at the previous tab, the previous question, we have next buttons until the last question where there is a submit button. And also there is a tracker along the bottom here that you might have just seen me using to navigate. So you can also see that that last little bubble here is highlighted and showing us that we are in fact at the last step of the form. That navigation can also be used to bounce around, to go to a previous question, etc. All right, so this form could be ready to go, but let's say, this again is a telemedicine appointment calendar. Let's say this is for an intake appointment for folks who might be joining our therapy practice. And we actually should have two different types of appointments available. So everybody looking for mental health counseling should be booking a 30-minute intake meeting. We have, we don't have quite as many questions for them, but folks who are seeking physical therapy or occupational therapy, those physical help, they might need a little bit more time for this intake questionnaire, this intake appointment that we're doing. In that case, we can add additional calendars as well. So I'm going to do the same thing. Just go to add form elements, drag and drop that Calendly widget. So I have two Calendly widgets, and I can add a second Calendly event URL here. Now, back in my Calendly account, if I go back to my home screen here, you can see I do have an additional appointment slot event type set up. So I have my 30-minute meeting and my 60-minute meeting. Now, you do have to have a paid Calendly account to have more than one event set up. So in this case, I have a free account. This is really just a placeholder. It's not actually going to work, but I did want to give you a sense of what that looks like. So you could have multiple events here. They will all have a unique URL, and you'll want to grab that URL for whatever calendar you want to add to your form. So let's say here, I can do the same thing, but for a 60-minute meeting, again, we won't actually see a calendar pop up, but we can use this sort of as a placeholder just so you get a sense of what this would look like. I can call this 60-minute appointment, add the subheader if I want to, do all the same settings, etc. But once that's set up, I don't want people to be able to book both appointments, right? I want the people who are doing counseling to be able to book a 30-minute meeting. The people who are doing PT or OT should be getting a 60-minute meeting. So for that, we'll go into settings and conditions to add in some conditional logic to make sure that we are only showing the appropriate calendar based on the appointment that somebody's looking for. I'm going to use the show hide field option here, and I'm going to set up two conditions. So first, what I want to do is say if the type of therapy you're seeking is equal to physical therapy, or if the type of therapy you're seeking is equal to occupational therapy. So you can see here, if any of those rules are matched, what I want to do is hide the 30-minute meeting. So I'll hide 30-minute appointment, save that. So that means that these folks won't see that 30-minute appointment. They will only see the 60-minute appointment when they select either physical or occupational therapy. Same thing on the flip side, I'll do it the same way. There are a couple of options here, but I personally think the easiest is to do it the same way. So if type of therapy you're seeking is equal to person-centered therapy, or if type of therapy you're seeking is equal to cognitive behavioral therapy, and down the line, if any of those conditions are met, what I want to do is hide the 60-minute meeting option. So we'll hide the 60-minute appointment. Once again, we'll save it. Now I have these two conditions added, so it should work so that folks are only seeing the meeting that they can go ahead and book. I can click on the Publish tab up here at the top for all of my sharing options. So we'll click to open this in a new tab. And now I can pretend to fill this out as if I were somebody making an appointment. So we will fill this out as test I am going to have to use my email here, not tests email. Hit next. And I'm going to select physical therapy. And we'll go through the rest of the questions. Please pretend that I'm filling these out. And you can see this last slide here is, in fact, the 60-minute appointment. There is no option for me to book a 30-minute appointment. Same thing, if I go back and I instead select CBT, I can go through and I only see the 30-minute appointment at the end. So it is also, a little bit more work to add in conditions like that. But if you are offering a variety of different types of appointments, pretty easy to do in the end. And again, doesn't take a ton of time. And you can make it much easier, again, for you and your users to get all of your appointments set. So that about wraps up the demo. I want to just quickly recap because I know that was kind of a lot. So in build is where you'll find the form element for Calendly. You want to go to widgets, search for Calendly, drag and drop it on your calendar. In Calendly, be sure to grab that link that I shared here so you can get that right here at the top of the event. You'll paste that into the space that you have for Calendly here on the form itself. You can open up that settings menu that we were looking at any point by looking for widget settings. So you go ahead and paste it right here, and that should automatically connect to your calendar and you can share it off from there. All right, I'm going to close this out with a couple of resources, and I know we do have, I can see a few questions come in. I also got a few from registration that I wanted to make sure we touched on. I thought they might be ones that a number of you had. So before we get to questions, I wanted to close you out with these two resources. I'm including the links here so you can screenshot this or memorize it if you want. Two different blogs about this widget. So the first, introducing new Calendly widget, my colleague Luke wrote. That's a great tutorial of basically everything I just showed you, but with screenshots instead of a live demo. Very thorough and a really great resource. If you are a Jotform enterprise user, my colleague Griffin wrote a similar article, but with an enterprise focus. So you may want to check out that second link here, new Calendly widget for Jotform Enterprise. Again, both great resources for you. I did also mention at the top that I would let you know how to get the recording. So if you are looking for the recording, it should be on our YouTube channel later today. So that is youtube.com/Jotform or the Jotform. And if you are registered, if you're not joining us from our live stream and you actually registered for today's session, you'll get a link sent to your email as well within the next week. You are also welcome to get in touch with me at any time if you want that link, or if you have questions, or you want to share how you're using Calendly. I always love to hear people's use cases. I am Morgan at jotform.com, MORGAN at Jotform. So if I can't answer your question, I will get you in touch with support and we'll do our best to help you very quickly. All right, on that note, a couple minutes for questions here. So let me just open up the Q&A. Okay, so does the calendar sync to Google Calendar? Great question from Bree. I know somebody in registration had also asked if this would tie into Outlook. The answer is yes. So when you sign up with Calendly, you will, again, in my case, I signed up with my Gmail account, which automatically connected it to the same calendar, the calendar with that account. You may have a few additional steps there, but it'll walk you through the process. But yes, you can connect to Google, Outlook. I think there are a few other that are pretty seamless as well. If you do need more of a tutorial for Calendly, I would definitely recommend looking at some of their tutorials and information. They're obviously, they know the product better than I do, and they can be a lot more thorough there. So yeah, definitely check out Calendly support if you need more on the Calendly end there. Can you allow to book all day instead of 30 or 60 minutes? I believe so. Yeah. So I think in that case with Calendly, what you would do is instead of selecting a 30 or 60-minute appointment, you can, I think, create a custom appointment time. I'm not entirely sure what the settings are, but there are a number of options in there. So you can do that. And same thing, I see, Doug, you had an additional question about choosing Monday to Friday or the date range there. My calendar automatically was set up to coincide with my work week. So the calendar that I was providing to Calendly, but you do, if you remember from that demo, the brief overview of Calendly, there is a drop down where you can define your hours, I believe on a per day basis, or at least provide a little bit more oversight into that. Troubleshooting steps. I see somebody's asking about the Calendly link not loading into the form at all. I would recommend in that case that you get in touch with support directly. If you have any trouble getting in touch, if you can't figure out how to get in touch with support, you can email me and I'll help you get in touch with support. But they should be, I believe it's jotform.com/contact. They usually respond within a couple of hours, and they are absolutely your best bet for any troubleshooting, any issues you have with this widget or with anything else in Jotform. So definitely check that out. I know I see a question about Calendly pricing. I know that came up in registration as well. So I don't want to reiterate, you do have to have a Calendly account for this to work. You can with Calendly, I looked this up before because I wanted to be prepared for this question. They do have a very clear pricing page. So if you just Google Calendly pricing, you'll be able to see all of the their pricing options. The free account comes with one event type, which is what I showed today. If you have any paid Calendly account, I believe you can have infinite numbers, different types of events. And that I believe is charged on an annual basis with Calendly. So you just need a Calendly account. If you just need that one event type, it can be a free account. If you need something a little bit more, you might need a paid Calendly account. But again, they very clearly lay out the pricing and what goes into each tier of pricing there. Okay, so I see a couple of questions about calendars. If you're taking payments, does it matter if you take payments through Jotform or Calendly? That is up to you and your workflow, whatever works better for you. I will say if you're using Jotform for payments, the payment integration as well, anything that you're collecting in your form gets pulled into your tables in Jotform. So it kind of becomes a database of your orders or your clients or whomever, whatever you're collecting in your form. So if you are taking payments in Jotform, you'll see all of that laid out in your table. You won't see that if you are connected through Calendly. So if you're collecting payments through Calendly, so you'll still see it, I imagine, but you won't see it all in the same place. So that might be one reason to look for to do that through Jotform rather than Calendly. Okay, just scanning through some of the registration questions. I think I hit all of those. I realized I didn't show what this looks like on the user's end. So let me actually go back into my demo just to quickly do that before I close. That is my calendar. If I were to fill this out, go back to the right tab here. Because I know some of you are going to be wondering how this all works. So what it looks like when it's actually done. So if I go through, let's publish this again and open it up. And I'll just quickly go through. I started to do this, but didn't finish it. So let's just do it one more time. Test. I'll just skip the rest of it. I'll do cognitive behavioral therapy, go through the rest of the form. And I can get to my last place here, choose a spot on Friday at 10:30 appointment. So I'm going to go ahead and make that appointment. You can see as a user of this form, I can see this confirmation before I submit that has my name and email. If I provide that, it shows me what the time slot is. I can hit schedule event here and then submit the form. And I get my thank you page. So that shows me that that's all confirmed. That went off to the person who owns the form. Now, as the form owner, that will appear automatically in my calendar. So I think it takes a couple of seconds, but should show up if I actually went ahead and did that correctly. Well, it worked in demo. I'm going to guess it's just taking a couple of extra seconds, but that should automatically add that meeting to my calendar for Fridays. I may have selected the wrong date or time. So we're not looking at the right page here, but that does automatically get added to the calendar. It does also take a couple of seconds. So it could just be that I'm not giving it enough time, but promise it works. I tested it multiple times myself. All right, let me just make sure I don't see any other questions. No. Yeah, I think I got to all of the questions. I am, if I missed your question again, you're welcome to get in touch with me, Morgan at Jotform. And again, if you want to watch this again later today, as you're trying to go through it yourself or down the line, or you want to share it with anybody else, you'll see that up on our YouTube channel later today. So YouTube, just look for Jotform on YouTube and you'll find us. You'll see this webinar, all our other webinars, all our other tutorials. I know somebody in registration had asked about getting a tutorial before the webinar, since there's usually a week or two before we do the webinar. We always have tutorials up on our site that are just a couple minute tutorials of how to do stuff. And those usually go up right away after a new release. So if you're looking for that, you can check those out on YouTube as well. And on that note, I am going to close us out. Thank you all for joining today. And again, feel free to get in touch if you need anything else. And